Hello and welcome back to the Project Management PrepCast. We are once again reporting live from the Psychometric Testing Center. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner. The topic of this lesson is the exam results report, but we are going to review and repeat a few facts from and about the exam as well, so that we are all on the same page. This means that in this lesson, we will be reviewing the exam timeline, the exam passing score, the exam results report content, and we look at the results drill down and interpretation. Throughout the lesson, I will be using the PMP, PMI ACP, and CAPM exam for my examples, but no matter which exam you are taking, how to read and understand your exam results report is the same. We begin with the exam timeline, and you may already have seen this here in one of our other lessons where we talk about the day of your exam, so I'll just do a brief review. The exam basically has 3 segments. The exam itself is preceded by an optional tutorial that is 15 minutes long. This will give you some time to calm down, relax, and get comfortable with the user interface. Then we have the actual exam. The allotted time for the PMP exam is 4 hours, and it's 3 hours for the PMI ACP or the CAPM exam. And while the duration may differ for each exam, there are no scheduled breaks. If you take any breaks, then the exam countdown clock keeps ticking. Also, there will be other people in the room, and there is going to be activity around you. After you are done with the exam, either by clicking End Exam or when your time has run out, you will take a survey, which takes another 15 minutes or so. Once you complete the survey, you will see your exam results report on the screen. And that exam results report is the focus of this lesson here. Obviously not the one that you see on your screen, but instead we review the printed version that you are given when you check out of the testing center. We want to review this document because once you are handed the report, you probably have a few questions that you'd like to have answered. And here are the top 4 questions that exam takers usually have following their exam and which they want to see answered by the exam results report. What is my exam score? How far was I from passing? Or if you did pass, then the question would be, how well did I do? What should I study to improve my results? Again, that is probably mostly a question asked by those who did not pass. But the 4th question, what were my areas of strength and weakness on the exam, is interesting for everyone because it's always good to know where you stand. Sadly, however, the answer to one of these 4 questions is not provided to us. Neither the exam results report nor PMI will tell you about the exam score. They don't tell you what the exam passing score is, and they also won't tell you what your personal exam score was. So you will never know how many questions you answered right or wrong. This has been a PMI policy for many years now. We simply don't know, and I'm not going to argue for or against this policy. It is what it is, and PMI does not provide this information. But what I can tell you is how PMI calculates the exam scores. But I begin by repeating this statement here. Nobody knows what the passing score for any PMI exam is. So if you hear anyone say that you need to answer X% of questions correctly in order to pass, then please tell them that they don't know what they're talking about because PMI simply does not disclose the passing scores. But what PMI does tell us is this. The passing score for all PMI exams is determined by sound psychometric analysis. At the core, this means that PMI uses subject matter experts, like project professionals from around the world and from many different disciplines, to determine how many questions you must answer correctly to pass the exam. And then, each scored question on the exam is worth 1 point, and your final exam score is calculated by totaling the points that you have earned on the exam. The number of questions you answer correctly places you within one of what they call their 4 performance rating categories. We'll see these 4 performance rating categories later when we look at the actual exam report. And now, here is how PMI establishes the passing score for the PMP, PMI ACP, and CAPM exam. We begin with the PMP exam. In this exam, you have to answer 200 multiple choice questions. Out of these 200 questions, 25 are considered pre-test questions. These pre-test questions, they don't affect your score at all. PMI uses them as an effective and legitimate way for testing new questions. In other words, new questions for the exam are first tried out in this way to see how well they work. Basically, you become a guinea pig for PMI so that they can test their latest questions. Anyway, the pre-test questions are randomly placed throughout the exam, so you don't know which ones are which. This means that you start out with 200 questions, minus the 25 pre-test questions, which leaves 175 questions that will in fact be scored. And, as you remember from the previous slide, they will be scored based on sound psychometric analysis. For the PMI ACP exam, the situation is very similar, but we have different numbers. You have to answer 120 multiple choice questions, and PMI will place 20 pre-test questions randomly in your exam. This means 100 questions will actually be scored. And for our third example, we look at the CAPM exam. Again, very similar situation, but different numbers. Here you have to answer 150 multiple choice questions, and because there are 15 pre-test questions randomly placed in your exam, that leaves 135 questions that will actually count towards your final score. So in other words, the numbers on the very right here are the maximum score that you can achieve for each of these exams. 175 is the maximum possible score for PMP, 100 is the maximum possible score for PMI ACP, and 135 is the maximum possible score that you could have on your CAPM exam. What we do not know is the minimum. The minimum would of course indicate the passing score for each exam, so maybe you need 99 correct answers to pass the PMP exam, or it might be 126. We simply do not know. At this point you're probably thinking, I wish he would stop telling me about all the things we are not being told and tell me what we are told instead. I can do that. What you see here is the top half of a sample exam results report. In the heading, you see your name as well as other information referencing the exam that you have just taken. Just below that, you can see the overall performance. In this particular example, the candidate has passed their PMP exam. And below that again, we can see where this student falls in regards to those 4 performance rating categories. This tells you where you landed on the scale, and you need to know what each of these 4 ratings means. So, the exam results report rates your performance based on one of these 4 performance rating categories. First, we have above target. This means that your performance exceeds minimum requirements. Second, there is target, which indicates that your performance meets the minimum requirements. Third is below target. This level denotes a performance that is slightly below target and fails to meet the minimum requirements. If you have to take your exam again, then additional preparation is recommended before a re-examination. And finally, there is needs improvement. Here your performance is well below target and fails to meet minimum requirements, and additional preparation is strongly recommended before you attempt to take the exam again. With these 4 categories, PMI aims to offer more guidance, information and support for those taking their exams, particularly if they need to retake the exam. You can now look at where you fall within these categories, and in that way you know where you lack knowledge and you can better focus your studies. Now we want to look at the bottom half of this report, because that is where it gets really interesting in regards to understanding how well you did in each area. This here is an exam results report example of someone who has taken their PMP exam, so we can see their performance divided up by the 5 domains of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, as well as closing. Those taking the PMI ACP exam would see their results listed for 7 domains, and for the CAPM, you will see it for each of the 13 chapters of the PMBOK guide. If you pass your exam, then this information is a good indicator for where you could take some additional training in the future. For example, you might want to consider taking a course that specifically discusses monitoring and controlling of a project because, as you can see, you were below target here in this example. And if you failed the exam, then you know that monitoring and controlling was the area where you were below target, and so you need to focus your additional studies here before you take the exam again. And for those who unfortunately failed the exam, like this sample student here, there is even more information available online. Log in to your account in PMI's online Continuing Certification Requirements system. That's the CCRS. And then click on the Exam Results section. Now you can drill down to a very detailed level to see exactly where you had problems. Here, PMI gives you your PMP and PMI ACP exam results in detail for each task, and for the CAPM exam, you get the details for each CAPM learning objective. You can see in which of these you scored low, medium, or high. These tasks and learning objectives are defined in the exam content outline for whatever exam you have taken, and you can grab your copy of this exam content outline on the PMI website as well. Our example student here can now print out the exam content outline for their PMP exam and read up on what tasks 1, 5, 6, 7 and 8 are all about, because as you can see here, the student performed low in these. And with that knowledge about which of these tasks am I low in, I can then specifically study up on those topics. Well, and that's pretty much all the information that you can find in your exam results report and online in the CCRS. Before we close, here is an important reminder of something that you may already have seen in our lesson where we talk about the day of your exam. Do not leave the testing center without a printed exam results report. This is because the printed report is your only proof that you have passed the exam. So make sure that you have it with you when you leave the testing center. And that's it. Here are your takeaways in regards to the exam results report. A one-page printed copy of your exam results report will be provided to you during checkout after your exam. The administrator will sign it and often also stamp your report so that it becomes official. Neither the report nor the PMI website will inform you about the required passing score or how many questions you answered right or wrong on the exam. The report will, however, give you an overall rating of either pass or fail and will additionally rate you in regards to the 4 performance rating categories. This is helpful so you know how you did. You can drill down into the specifics by logging on to the PMI CCRS website where detailed ratings are available either by task or learning objectives of the exam that you have taken. And please, don't forget to safeguard the printed exam results report you get upon checkout. It's the hard copy proof of your exam result. And that concludes our lesson on understanding your exam results report. Until next time.